Hi. Hello. Hi. Um, this is Moth Babe again. I'm just saying hello. It's just a quick blog again. I'm just basically trying to figure out what's the reason why sometimes guys make up that they're really interested in us and then they completely back off like they've never known you at all without a call or a text or anything like that. Now I can imagine, interest, like if a guy like isn't that attracted to a girl, because I've met loads of guys that say they were talking to a woman and then I go, was she nice and attractive? And they go, no, we were just chatting. And I'm like, well, if you don't find her attractive, why did you talk to her in the first place? Because, obviously a woman's going to think that you're attracted to her if you're talking. But then again, I don't always talk to guys that I'm attracted to, and I hope they don't think that I'm only talking to them because I'm attracted. So, yeah, you can talk to people that you're not attracted to, but especially if you're in a bar situation, you are looking for someone who's going to be a mate, a potential mate. So therefore, you would be going for someone that you find attractive if you were to fill in a form of your ideal woman, and the criteria was, let's say, brunette, nice figure, beautiful cheekbones, nice lips, beautiful eyes, sexy to talk to, interesting, funny, warm. If that girl fitted that criteria, of course you'd go and talk to her. But just because you haven't found that doesn't mean you just talk to just anyone, even if they don't actually fit into criteria, because you're a man. There was an actual guy that says to me that he wasn't really that attracted to the woman, but he was ended up sleeping with her anyway, just for the sex of it. Now, how can you honestly have sex with someone that you're not that attracted to? I guess it can happen at the end of the day. Yeah, there is that kind of sex with someone that you don't really care what they look like that much, as long as you're getting some sex, kind of. Um, I've always thought to myself I can be that way, but I don't think in reality I could. I really have to be very attracted to the person and then their personality, and there has to be a lot with it before I can jump into bed with them. But if a guy's really, really attracted to a woman and they like a lot of things about her, and the date's been going really well, and the seduction, either by email or text or whatever, has been going well, and there is a very big sexual attraction, what would be the problem as to why a guy wouldn't actually contact a woman after that, is beyond me. Sometimes if you tell a guy you love them, which is what I've done, a few times. Um, there's no time limit. I mean, people fall in love with people after a day, after a week, a month, 6 months, a year, just because some people have got different criteria. I had a guy that fell in love with me after 2 weeks. I've had guys that have been in love with me after a month. So if I'd fallen for a guy after 2 months or 4 months, as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty normal. I think I did make the mistake of telling a guy, maybe too soon. Maybe you need to be sure that they're into you first, or maybe they feel like they want to chase you more, and once you told them that you love them, they think, oh my God, this is not a buzz for me. Also, if they're in a relationship or they're married and they're trying to get something on the side, they don't necessarily want to be having someone that's in love with them after them, because that brings on a lot of complications. It's not necessarily that they're not in love with the person that's telling them they love them. It's just they just don't need that right now. They're getting love, supposedly, in their relationship already. The reason why they're having an affair or a fling on the side is because they want extracurricular sex, I guess. So, but that's not always the case. A lot of people who cheat and have affairs, not necessarily looking just for sex. They're looking for companionship, friendship, sometimes the love and the intimacy they're not getting in their relationship. And sometimes they end up leaving that particular relationship for the person they're having an affair with. It's not the right thing to do, but sometimes it's the way it happens. I've known lots of people that have got with people in that situation, and there's a lot of actual Hollywood romances that have actually worked out, so I've heard, and they've ended up starting that way. I mean, they started that way and they've ended up okay. Um, yeah, so sometimes it does faze me when, guys come on very strong. They don't even always have sex with you. They just like, they've done things, they've kissed, whatever, we've been out on dates, they've made you feel special, amazing, you know that they like you, especially if you're like myself, you're attractive, you're not just attractive, but you're intelligent, interesting, funny, warm, you know. I've also got a daughter, so therefore I'm good at being a mother, so that gives me a lot more experience, you know. I do modeling, I do writing, I'm a very talented individual. You know, I'm not being big-headed, and a lot of guys would give me a low self-esteem when they don't stick around, but if someone falls for me, I would think, well, yeah, you know, yeah, I can imagine, you know. I've been alone for about 3 or 4 years now, so, you know, it's nothing wrong that I should actually be allowed to go out with someone for like 5 minutes. And so, I don't know, maybe I'm intimidating for a guy. Maybe a guy thinks that an attractive girl is likely, I don't think I'm attractive, but, you know, people say I am, so obviously on this video I might not be coming out that attractive, but I think I am. I guess sometimes I think I am, sometimes I don't. But I'm just thinking, maybe a guy thinks a girl like you has a lot of guys after her, therefore I'd always be wondering who is she with or what is she doing. Maybe he thinks that way. Maybe he thinks it's too good to be true, that an attractive girl like you who's got a lot going for you, why would you go for someone like me? But they don't actually say it because they've got too much pride, but they're feeling it. They're like their wife or the person that they're actually seeing in real life probably is kind of more or less a bit more kind of average and plain maybe. That's why they're having these affairs, so therefore to them that person that is with them is not likely to cheat on them, so it's a safe bet for them. But they get with a kind of a foxy, sexy girl and they think it's fine for something a bit extra, but as an actual relationship I wouldn't trust this person. Maybe they think that way. I'm not actually kind of like that anyway. I am flirty in terms of talking to people, and I do, you know, have a lot of admirers here on YouTube, and I also, you know, if someone requests me on Facebook and their info is quite interesting, then I will add them. But, you know, at the end of the day, people have to have something in common with me. Because I do modeling, I would add photographers, models, you know, people that are not other authors like myself, people who have connections within writing, other poets, artists, you know, people like that. So I have to make sure there is something there. But there are a lot of people with profiles and there's no information. They actually withhold every bit of information. But then I just think, okay, let's add them. Then later on you'll get talking to them, you know, and most of them are in other countries, so they're not really a threat. They're not likely to come to your house or anything like that and, you know, kidnap you. So, and there are people with over 5,000 friends. I mean, do you really think that the people that have 5,000 friends on Facebook actually know each individual that they've added? So, you know, maybe people think, oh God, this person's always got like a lot of friends, you know, where do I fit into it? But people shouldn't really judge. They should automatically find out more about a person before they judge someone. And maybe sometimes people walk away. I'm not saying that guys who walk away from women walk away because they've already got someone, but that is the big situation a lot of the time. People, or not necessarily guys, but women as well who cheat, they're looking for something different, and sometimes they think they're just looking for no strings attached sex, but obviously intimacy is sometimes what they're looking for on the long term. They're looking for companionship, friendship, fun, something different, and it is difficult to draw a line and say, okay, this is just sexual here, and my actual other relationship here is just love and whatever, because it starts to cross over eventually. You're going to actually get to a point where you are around a human being enough, even if it's on a sexual basis, that you're going to start to develop stronger feelings for them as a person, as a friend, as a confidant, and that's when you're going to actually feel confused, especially if you're already with someone. Of course, a single person that gets with people who are already attached goes into that knowing that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I say if someone is looking for something when they're in a relationship, as much as it's wrong to do, if they are looking for that, then they're obviously looking for something different, and, you know, maybe they're not entirely happy in their situation. But, yeah, I do kind of seem to meet guys that show they're very intensely interested, and then they just don't seem to bother after that. And usually I wouldn't mind, but a recent situation has left me thinking, I can't deal with this, because, you know, I'd known this person for about 4 months, and there was no reason for him to just completely ignore me. You know, initially, he didn't. He texted back after a couple of weeks, but then after that he started to not reply. And you know, I was just like, okay. And then it like went on, and I didn't want to be the type that just goes, okay, it's obviously finished, because I don't think that's fair. He'd got close enough to me to be able to say, look, I can't do this anymore, it's not right, even by text, or hey, let's just be friends, or hey, I need space. But maybe it becomes difficult for individuals to say that, I guess, and they presume that if you don't reply, you'll get the message. But it does confuse people and make people wonder when you meet the next person, when they're actually interested in you, you know, are they going to disappear from you? You go into another situation wondering. So, you know, I personally, if I don't really like someone, I try to express that on a date. I would try to say, this isn't for me, I'm sorry, if they're pursuing me. I wouldn't just let them text me and text me and text me and text me and ignore it, which is what this latest guy is letting me do. I should be. I'm not texting him and texting him, but every so often, like every sort of few days, I'll text him, and he's not, you know, I've said to him, you know, at least tell me. If you don't want me to be interested in you, tell me. If you need some space, tell me. I sent him like a really big email, actually, you know, explaining, you know, how close I thought he'd got and everything that happened, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. If you don't want to see me, tell me. If you want some space, tell me. But nothing. You know, I gave him a chance to say that. So I don't really know. Sometimes you think that if someone doesn't say anything, that they still want to hear from you, but they're still making up their mind. You know, I personally like to know, as much as it's not nice to hear. I do like to know that it's finished. I don't like people that just back off completely, and then 6 months down the line they start to contact you thinking they can pick up where they left off. And you're like, you know, okay, right, I don't think so. But it is a difficult subject, because sometimes friends back away for a few months, and then they come around and you don't give them guilt trips sometimes. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you say, okay, you know, it's been a while, but you're my friend, so it doesn't matter. Maybe this person feels that way. He feels that he's got his life, I've got mine, you know, he left me to get on with it. But it's still, I think, pretty rude to ignore someone, especially when you haven't ignored them. You know, if you're the type that tends to ignore people for a few days or a week, and you don't text them regularly, fine. But if you're someone that had been in touch with someone every day for, you know, 5 hours a day, like texting back and forth, if you suddenly just stop, it's kind of a bit sudden and a bit weird, really. And I just think it is very confusing why people do that. I wouldn't lead a guy on if I wasn't interested, really. I only pursue a guy when I'm interested in him, and I think a guy should only pursue a girl if he's actually interested. But maybe guys can have this ability to pursue a woman on a pure sexual level, and when they feel it's getting beyond that, they have this ability to completely disappear. It doesn't matter how much they're attracted or fancy that person or admire the friendship, they're willing to cut it off because love is involved, and for them it brings on something else. I don't know what it brings for them, but women want to embrace that, whereas maybe some men don't want to. Maybe they just feel it's complications, it's commitment, it's soppy, it's flowers, it's candles. Maybe they don't like it. But I've met a lot of guys who say they like the romance and they like that. So, you know, I guess I would say people that run away from women have got a lot of issues, especially men that don't justify why they've gone, who don't actually give you any closure, who don't say sorry, it's not working out, or sorry, I need space. They bring on their own misery, and they probably end up lonely in their own relationships anyway. Because a lot of them end up staying in relationships because they're unhappy and end up cheating to get what they need, and then they end up trying to make their own relationship work when it just won't work, and then that ends up fizzling, and then they can't find anyone because they're too old, but they've given up an opportunity years ago because of their own insecurities. So, you know, that's really it. I'm just saying that I'm a bit phased as to why guys just don't bother, and you're supposed to go, well, he's obviously not interested then, and then you see him a year on and he's like, hi, and you're like, well, do I know you? Should I? I'm supposed to know you now and drop everything? I'm just about to get engaged here, and now, like, I'm going to drop everything because you dropped me ages ago? Excuse me, I don't know you. You know, that's the kind of response they're going to get. Supposedly. But yeah, a lot of guys seem to think they can just pick up where they left off, I guess. So maybe that's just their way. Who knows? Who really knows? Only Model Babe can find out. So anyway, See you later, and keep watching for my videos. Bye!